Do you have the perfect amount of tree stand cover around your tree stands that helps you hide in and helps you actually hunt without being spooked? I think it's going to come as a surprise that I don't think you actually need a lot of cover around your tree stands. This happens to be one of our best behind here. We call it the Diego stand. There's some conifer breaking up the profile from behind it. The stand is effectively screened in. We have trees in front of it. It's dark timber in here, so we can hide in there pretty easily. It doesn't matter if we're 15 feet or 22 feet up in the air. But the bottom line, in any of your stand locations, the deer should be coming through with a focus and movement. I go to a lot of properties where hunters are hunting their food plots over and over again. And it doesn't take very long for young bucks, old bucks, does, doesn't matter, fawns, to pick out those stand locations, and then that's repeated every single year. And it creates a situation where that food plot becomes nocturnal. The deer know where you're at, and it's almost impossible to shoot a mature buck on there because whether he's known you're there or not, he feeds off those cues of every other deer that comes out into that plot. And when they're staring up in that location, he notices those kind of things and he stays well away. The perfect amount of tree stand cover doesn't rely on actually the cover that's in the tree. And I'll repeat that. The perfect amount of tree stand cover does not rely on the amount of cover that's in your tree. Instead, you want deer that are walking through to actually have a focus, and a focus away from your tree stand. And again, you're just watching passing deer. When that happens, you can get away with a lot of sits on your land because deer are not focused on something that's right in front of your stand. And if they are, it's not a food plot where they're sitting there for a half hour, 45 minutes at a time at every different angle waiting for here's some little metallic ting in your stand location that will spook them away. Now the focus of a mock scrape, the focus of a scrape, the focus of a rub in the area, that's okay. The focus of this bench system right here in this trail, that's awesome because when deer are moving through this, they're not paying attention to me in my stand location or you in your stand locations. What I found is when you're only watching passing deer, and those deer have a purpose, meaning that they're focusing on a mock scrape over here, natural scrape over here, water hole over there, food plot in the distance, bedding areas, travel corridors, cut corridors, then you're just hunting a window of that movement. You're just looking into that window and they're passing by. The opposite of that is you're sitting in a living room or a kitchen, a dining room, and you're just sitting there staring at those deer while they're feeding. They're going to notice you. But when they're just passing through a window, 2 or 3 shooting windows, those deer don't notice you, and you can get away with hunting a very poor cover tree, meaning that you don't have that great conifer canopy behind you or a profile broken or other trunks around you, just simply because the perfect tree stand amount of cover in the perfect tree stand location doesn't boil down to how much cover you have around you in the tree or it being in the perfect tree that fits the exact diameter that you want. The perfect tree stand location revolves around hunting out of the perfect tree in the right spot. So the perfect location is what you need to focus on, not the perfect tree with a great amount of cover. You really don't need a lot of cover in your tree if you're hunting the right locations and you're just hunting deer that are passing by. If you're hunting deer, even on a water hole, deer only stop for typically a minute, 30 seconds, minute and a half at the most, and then they're on. That's a quick stop, and then they're on somewhere else, and they always have a focus of where they're going next. That's why I like using water holes in between bedding areas and food plots. I like putting mock scrapes in between water holes and a bedding area. So you're constantly reinforcing that line of movement, the deer moving on that line. And again, when it goes back to the perfect amount of tree stand cover or the right amount of tree stand cover, it doesn't revolve around what's around the tree. It revolves around where the deer are going, where their focus is at, and if they're moving back and forth. Again, you're looking at just a window of their movement where you can shoot into, maybe 2 or 3 windows. You're not looking at a kitchen or a dining room of movement where you're just watching those deer feed continuously for a half hour, 45 minutes. They're gonna pick you out. Staging areas are the same thing. A lot of those mature bucks will hit a staging area right before a food plot. That's their last secure amount of cover before they hit that food plot. That's why it's a staging area. A staging area doesn't have an open amount of hardwoods 200 yards before their bedding area, because then the staging area is right at their bedding area. It's that last amount of cover where they feel safe going out into a food plot. I know there's bedding areas, staging areas. I've talked about that in other areas, other videos or articles. and then you have food plot staging areas. When they're in those areas and lingering for a long amount of time, you have a great opportunity to be busted, whether it's a stray scent or a stray sight or a stray sound. Focus on the perfect amount of cover around your tree, not necessarily being the cover that's in the tree, but how that deer is focused when they're traveling through and that window that you're watching for them. The perfect amount of cover might be very little cover at all, as long as you're watching deer that are passing by and you're applying a light amount of hunting pressure to your overall property. You have multiple stands, complementary stands where you can take advantage of those movements. You're hunting at the right weather and you're generally not pressuring your stands. You'll find you don't need a lot of cover this fall when you're hunting your favorite tree stand setup.